Welcome aboard. It's one of our rare wet and windy days on the Gold Coast outside, so I'm taking the opportunity to do a bit of work in my workshop. The show we're going to show you today is unusual. For the last 8 years, for the full existence of World of Boats, we've been providing video dubs of all of the segments that we do on the show to manufacturers for display at the boat show circuit around Australia. And I'm sure most of you have seen those clips as you visited the boat show. Well, this year we had requests from several manufacturers to expand the videos and make videos that were specifically produced for the boat show circuit. Now, some of them are up to 20 minutes or half an hour long. They're extremely comprehensive. They show in fine detail the operations and the factories of these manufacturers. And one of them was the Stebercraft organisation. Now, the history of Bruce Steber, who's still very active in the business, pretty well parallels the history of modern boat building in Australia, and particularly the introduction of high-tech materials such as fiberglass and some of the more sophisticated reinforcing materials. And the video turned out to be extremely interesting. We were able to get some early footage of some of the places that Bruce worked in, some of the early boats that he built, and it takes it right up to the present day. And it's turned out so well that we're going to show it to you this week as a full episode of World of Boats. Now, it is interesting. As I said, it has historical significance, and it certainly contains some quite beautiful footage of some superb boats, the Steber range. Let's look at the Steber video. The history of Stebercraft reaches back to the beginnings of modern boat building in Australia and is steeped in the traditions of craftsmanship and the sea. Bruce Steber has always been a seagoing man. Even in his early days in Sydney, where he served his apprenticeship in a boatyard at Narrabeen, he showed a keenness to examine the performance parameters of his creations at sea. It's this hands-on attitude, allied with the traditional skills and philosophies established during his apprenticeship, which has shaped the boats we see today. Soon after the Second World War, Bruce established a factory in Sydney to produce a range of small clinker plywood boats. And in 1958, he commenced a research program into fiberglass, which was to contribute significantly to the future of boat building in this country. Stebercraft trailer boats went against the general trend of small boats in Australia by maintaining traditional values in a marketplace heavily oriented towards American influences. And his boats became the benchmark for quality and performance. Even today, a 25-year-old second or third-hand Stebercraft trailer boat is highly prized for its strength and performance. The trailer boats found a ready market among light commercial fishermen, and Bruce's contact with these operators led him to investigate the feasibility of producing a larger vessel for duty as a net and trap boat with a capability of remaining at sea for several days. The Sydney facility wasn't capable of building boats of this size, so a major program was commenced to restructure and relocate, which was to establish Stebercraft as one of Australia's most respected builders of large commercial vessels. Taree on the New South Wales coast was chosen for its easy access to the fishing centres, and in 1973 a 4-acre site was purchased close to the town and the Manning River. A large factory was built, and in 1976 design commenced on a 34-foot diesel-powered fast fishing boat. The design began life as a conceptual outline, a ghost ship. Here again, Stebercraft brought traditional values to the fore. Until this time, Australian fiberglass boat builders had designed their products to perform well in the factory. Ease of handling and layup, speed and economy of production and fit-out had all taken precedence over performance on the water and suitability for the intended purpose. Stebercraft went about it in the logical way. They consulted and questioned fishermen and commercial operators up and down the coast. They examined existing boats and equipment and accepted or rejected concepts and ideas on their merits, and gradually the ghost ship filled out and became the distillation of all of the best ideas and concepts currently available. The 34-foot commercial was a success from the beginning. She proved herself seaworthy, durable and able, but most importantly, she was adaptable. Whether the task was crayfishing, abalone, long lining or bottom fishing, the 34 was there working efficiently. She pulled nets easily, had efficient sorting and storage facilities, and could make port readily with full loads in all weathers. Acceptance was not immediate, however. Commercial fishermen are a sceptical lot, and they viewed this newfangled fiberglass boat with suspicion. It took almost a year for them to realise that the Steber was fishing rings around their traditional and slow timber trawlers. The commercials were also ordered by government departments both throughout Australia and overseas. Police, pilot, fisheries patrol, coastal surveillance, survey and shark meshing tasks have all been carried out by Stebercraft commercials, and the boats have once again proven themselves able and reliable. Then in 1983, Stebercraft once again turned the tables on the opposition. Bruce and his son Alan, active in the business since completing an engineering course in 1976, began to receive requests from pleasure boat owners who appreciated the qualities of the commercials and who reasoned that their game fishing and cruising boats would benefit from the Stebercraft touch. The new direction came at the right time for Bruce and Alan. The business was growing steadily, the staff had stabilised and developed their expertise, and the prospect of new horizons was appealing. Again, extensive market and existing equipment surveys were conducted, and the design gradually grew from concept to reality. The commercial 41 hull was chosen for her proven seakeeping qualities, and a new superstructure was engineered to integrate both aesthetically and structurally. Below the cabin sole, the boat was built exactly as years of commercial experience had dictated she should, strongly and with a view to long-term reliability. Come aboard with me whilst Bruce puts her through her paces. Bruce and Alan had the great advantage of being able to design and build their factory specifically for the purpose of building big boats. This is a demanding task requiring foresight and the provision of heavy lifting and handling facilities. The laminating section should ideally be isolated from the rest of the factory, with the boats progressing from basic mouldings as they move through the factory. Considerations of quality control dictated that the entire construction should remain in-house, rather than following the common practice of farming out or subcontracting, and this meant that facilities for carpentry, upholstery, aluminium and stainless steel and engineering must all be catered for. The factory was designed and built accordingly, and foresight in allowing for growth paid off when it was expanded to a total of 2 acres under cover in 1986. In spite of the traditional background, modern technology has not been ignored. Great advances are constantly being made in advanced fiberglass techniques, typified by the Divinacell Divolet system used by Steber in their hulls and decks. It yields extreme rigidity and strength, but very lightweight, and was assessed and introduced by Stebercraft as a means of increasing the structural integrity of the boats without a weight penalty. I've mentioned a couple of times about Stebercraft's engineering. Now, it's an extremely important aspect of what they do. Not only does their engineering, which has been developed over many years to really do the job, set their boats up properly, but it also indicates the attitude of the people who build the boats towards
what they do. I'll give you some examples. There's the A-frame, which of course supports the shaft between the stern tube there and the propeller. Enormously strong and solid, a large capacity bearing in there. More, by the way, about the shaft and bearing in a minute. There is the rudder support tube, which of course bolts through the bottom of the boat and supports the rudder assembly. Enormously strong and heavy, very, very solid, heavy scantlings. Now, a really telling point about Steber's boats is they're through hull fittings. If you look around most Australian built stock cruisers, you'll find they have a plastic fitting through the fiberglass skin with a piece of plastic tube on it. Now, that is not good enough for Steber. They have a bronze and brass fitting as far as the skin fitting is concerned. All of the fittings come through with a stopcock on them so that it's possible to turn the water off at any time, and all of them have a standpipe which extends above the water level in the boat. Now, that means that if there is failure in any of these areas here, and it's most unlikely that any of it would ever fail because it's so solidly and so well built, there is still no way that the water, if the hose, for instance, comes off the tube, there's no way that the boat can fill up with water because the end of that is above the water level in the boat. Now, you can imagine the potential for damage there. A couple of years, a bit of ageing in the plastic, a bit of a problem with the installation of the cable clamp there, and you'll find that you'll have water coming straight into the boat. Now, just have a look over here. They do a very interesting thing with the drive shaft. The drive shaft on large cruisers will inevitably wear where it goes through the stern gland, through the shaft log in the boat, where it's supported by the A-frame, which we just saw. Over an extended period of time, you'll find that the monometal or stainless steel drive shaft will wear. Steber overcome the effects of that by making each end of the drive shaft with an identical taper. Now, that means that the coupling that goes onto the gearbox and the taper that goes into the propeller are both exactly identical. So that means that when the shaft wears, you can take it out, end for end it, put it back in again, and effectively you've doubled the life of the drive shaft in the boat. Now, without belabouring the point too much, another example, which is not necessarily directly connected to the engineering of the boat, but which has to do with the way in which the boat is finished, are these marlin platform support struts. Now, on the after end of the boat, that goes against the transom, that goes underneath the marlin platform, and a bolt goes right through the transom and picks up in a welded-in thread in there on a Stebercraft boat. The competition simply puts it down against the transom and puts a self-tapping screw through. Now, there's no doubt about the fact that that holds, okay? There are lots of boats running around Australia with the marlin platforms held on that way, and whilst they may need replacement or checking once a year or so, they hold. But the fact is that rather than just being put together, these boats are built by people who really are dedicated to what they do and who make each individual boat their own personal business. Bruce and Alan Steber and all of the guys who work in the factory know every individual boat that they build and that they have ever built, almost by name and certainly by personality, and they have an ongoing involvement in it.
The range of pleasure boats grew rapidly. Australia has some of the best game fishing grounds in the world, and the growing Stebercraft presence at venues around the coast, along with their successes in competitions, attracted the attention of discerning skippers who found in Bruce and Alan people who understood their requirements. Many firm and long-standing friendships between the Stebers and their customers have been established as a result. As with the commercials, feedback and experience have steadily refined the breed. Take, for example, the 33-foot Gamefisher. Today, the Stebercraft factory employs a total of 43 shipwrights, carpenters, upholsterers and engineers, including 3 apprentices. They build 25 large vessels per year, and they've established a lively export market into Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Plans are in hand to further expand the factory buildings, and several new vessels are in the design and planning stage. Here is the latest off the line, the 36-foot Gamefisher. About a year ago, we looked at the Stebercraft 33 as a pocket game fisherman, one of the first boats that Steber designed right from scratch to be used effectively in the pleasure or semi-pleasure market. And in quite a few cases, you couldn't really get a serious game fisherman to say that what he does is pure pleasure. And we were very impressed with the way in which the boats were built, set up, the way in which they were designed to fulfil that particular function, the way in which the function was achieved by the 33-footer, and particularly the engineering of these boats. Well, in the ensuing 12 months, the 33s have been in the field. Quite a few have been sold to serious amateur game fishermen. And the Stebercraft organisation are constantly looking for and receiving feedback from their owners. They establish a close personal relationship with all of the owners of their boats, and obviously the information that they get back from the field, so to speak, is incorporated in new models. One of the minor deficiencies with the 33, which came to light as a result of this feedback, was the fact that the aft cockpit was a little small. Now, the 33 had as its genesis the 36-footer, so Steber's then turned around, put the 33-foot superstructure back on the 36-foot hull with some modifications, some refinements particularly to the flybridge, and yielded a 36-foot game fisherman with an 11'6" long aft cockpit. Now that pretty well gives the average light game fisherman and serious game fisherman up and down the Australian coast exactly the boat he needs to do the job that he needs to do. As far as the interior is concerned, Steber have looked very seriously at the comforts of this boat as a day boat, perhaps with the crew sleeping aboard but with the owner sleeping ashore. They've installed a huge galley, a really large galley, which makes it nice at sea if you're cooking, particularly in a seaway. A very comfortable cabin forward with V-berths and an infill. And of course a large comfortable saloon with a convertible L-shaped dinette, which you just saw. But out aft is where it all happens. That's the business end of the boat, and the cockpit is not only huge, but it's superbly appointed. There's a very well and thoughtfully designed icebox fitted behind the companionway ladder to the flybridge, which is the only part of the cockpit that you can't use anyhow. Rod racks inside the ceiling of the boat are standard equipment, and there is a live bait well mounted in this case down against the inside of the transom. Now that is movable. You can move it wherever you like around the boat. It's properly plumbed, of course, to keep the bait alive. A large solidly mounted marlin platform, a full-depth opening door from the marlin platform into the aft cockpit, a whole lot of features combined to make this boat absolutely superb for the light game fisherman. This particular one is powered by 2 Perkins T6 354 diesels of 240 brake horsepower each, which yields a top speed in the 23 to 24 knot range. Now, the boats are impressive. Steber boats, as I've said, are beautifully finished, beautifully appointed. Anybody who knows what he's looking at must be impressed by the way in which the boats are set up and presented to perform their particular function. But if you look through the factory, as we did during our trip to Taree, you realise just how superbly these boats are engineered. Bruce Steber has been in the business since the Second World War. Alan Steber has followed in his footsteps. They're both extremely serious about what they do, and they're both enormously proud of every single boat that they turn out of the factory. The engineering is superb, no plastic through-hull fittings. There are copper standpipes above all of the hull fittings with a stopcock, so there's no possibility of problems with losing a hose off the inside of a fitting and thereby sinking the boat. The drive shafts are double-ended, which means that when the stern gland and the A-bracket underneath the after end of the boat wear the shaft slightly, which of course takes quite a long time, you can simply withdraw it, end-friend it, reinstall it, and you've effectively doubled the life of the drive shaft. Now that's a small thing, but it indicates the sort of thought and attention that are applied to everything they do by the Stebercraft organisation. The Stebercraft organisation is as well founded as the superb boats it builds. From its beginnings in the late 40s through incorporation in 1966 and the relocation to Taree in 1972, right up to the present day, every step and stage has been planned and executed with an eye to the future. And the future looks bright indeed. Several brand new models are in the works, among them this 47-foot hull. Planned as a luxury motor yacht, the first order for this boat has been received from a commercial operator who will use her for tuna fishing. The cruiser version is aimed at the export American market. She'll sleep up to 8, have a top speed of more than 30 knots and be capable of extended coastal and international cruising. Her size, performance and quality will ensure a lively market both in Australia and overseas, and along with her sister ships, she will take Stebercraft and Australian boat building into the 90s and beyond. Interesting feature that, and I'm sure you would have enjoyed all the early footage. And as I said at the beginning, it certainly shows some of the history of early boat building in Australia, which I guess has run parallel with that in most other countries as a result of the development of high-tech materials such as fiberglass. But one of the things about it is this little boat that I'm building here is a little round bilge displacement dinghy, which is very similar to the clinker boats that Bruce built during his early days. And for those of you who are curious as to why I happen to be building it, we're in the process of producing some advanced fiberglass techniques tapes as a result of the success of basic fiberglass techniques, the first one of which is foam sandwich boat building. And this particular boat is one that I've designed to use as a jig on which to build the foam sandwich boat. Now, as you can see, it's very tight in the curves of the bilge there. It's quite short, so it's the most difficult shape to apply the foam to, and for that reason I've decided to use this size and shape. So watch out in future months for the announcement of the availability of advanced fiberglass techniques, foam sandwich jig building and foam sandwich boat building. That wraps us for another week. We'll see you next week with another world of boats. In the meantime, take care and safe boating.